Would you be the jerk for refusing to eat a meal your girlfriend made? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for telling my daughter she's living outside of her means and I'm not bailing her out with her credit card debt? My daughter is 24 and living on her own. She has a job that supports her well, but she's living beyond her means. I have told her so many times to cut back and even offer to help make a budgeting plan. Every time she tells me she knows what she's doing. I got a call from her and she's $3,000 in credit card debt and was panicking since she didn't have enough to make the minimum payment. She asked me to lend her money to bail her out. I told her I want to see her transactions of the credit card. I was going to help her if she was doing essential purchases. She wasn't. It mostly consisted on Amazon shopping, eating out, and clothes stores. I told her I will not bail her out of that debt since she's living beyond her means. I also brought up that she's planning a vacation that she can't afford. Instead, I told her that I'll help her make a budget, and it will suck for a few months, but we probably fix her debt. She got ticked at me and this started an argument. I won't bail her out, and she thinks I'm a huge jerk. I told her it's her own fault for living outside of her means, and a few sandwiches would drastically cut down on what she spends. I think OP's being a very responsible and honestly really great parent by helping them fix this thing and get a budget plan going. I think the only way you can prevent them from getting in this situation again is for them to understand what it does take to not end up in that situation. Especially at this point when it's not, I would say, too far gone. Like at that point, if you have an average salary, it might suck for honestly a while. But you can definitely budget and get that $3,000 paid off. You don't want to reward bad behavior by just wiping it for her. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for ruining at a family dinner because of my golden child sister? I, female 17, have a younger sister, Emily, female 16. Even though they don't say it explicitly, Emily is clearly my parents' favorite child. I can understand why they're proud of Emily. She's a straight-A student, has the lead roles in student theater, swims competitively, is popular at school, and very, very good-looking. I, on the other hand, am probably more plain. I work hard at school, but I'm not as outgoing or intelligent as Emily, and don't excel at any extracurriculars like she does. My parents always celebrate Emily. We have certificates of her work on the fridge, always have outings and meals to commemorate her achievements, and attend all of her swim events and plays. I know my parents love me, but I don't get close to the level of attention, even when I work hard. The other night, we went out with my parents, uncle, aunt, and cousins. We'd just been to one of Emily's shows, and she'd recently got accepted onto a summer scheme she was wanting to complete. The whole meal revolved around discussing Emily and how proud everyone was of her accomplishments. I don't think I was mentioned once. I'm usually more reserved or just bite my tongue, but midway through the meal I shouted out, "Maybe if you paid more attention to me and not just your golden child, you'd have more things to celebrate." Everyone just went silent, and my mom said we discussed this when we got home and not to ruin the meal. Emily looked shocked and close to crying. To say the rest of the meal was awkward would be putting it lightly. When we got home, my parents shouted at me for embarrassing them and said that Emily deserves to be celebrated, and that if I did something that merited celebration, I would receive the same treatment. I said how unfair this was and nothing I do gets recognized regardless. Emily joined in and said she works hard and deserves to be recognized for that, and as the older sister, I should grow up and actually work for once if I want her success. I haven't spoken to Emily since then, and my parents are still annoyed at me for ruining the meal. Am I the jerk? I mean, I guess to play devil's advocate, the problem here is OP didn't explicitly list anything that they did that they weren't recognized for. I mean, when Emily does good at her swim meets or does have some kind of major accomplishment, she does deserve to be celebrated for that stuff, right? I mean, obviously, you don't want to feel like you're being ignored, but if your main argument is, we went out to a celebratory dinner for something Emily did, and they didn't talk about me, I think it gets blurrier to say whether or not that's actually an issue. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not returning money my ex-husband sent to me mistakenly? A few days ago, my ex-husband mistakenly transferred two payments of $8,700 and $9,275. He did this at around 7:40 a.m. in the morning, and I didn't notice because I just worked a double/night shift and was getting ready for bed. So my phone was charging on the nightstand. At the same time, my 4 children were at my parents', and so I planned to sleep away half the day. I guess he realized his mistake around 8:30 a.m., and by then I was asleep. I woke up at around 4 p.m. to at least 100 missed calls and maybe 150 texts, asking and begging me to send him back the money. My initial thoughts were to send it back, but then I remembered he owed me $12,000 and hasn't paid me back since I lended it to him 4 years ago, and he's had a million excuses why he can't pay me back, and yet I always see him living it up. I kept the amount he owed me and returned only $5,975 and told him I deducted his debt. Since then, I've had him call me every book in the name because this was apparently money he was saving to buy his girlfriend an engagement ring, the engagement venue, etc. So according to him, he had to tell her. This then led to it ruining the surprise engagement he had planned for the next weekend. His girlfriend had been bad-mouthing me, and it's caused a bit of a crap storm with me having to shut down my social media, and even his parents, who I had a cordial relationship with, has been impacted by it. I discussed the situation with a friend and colleague, and it was overheard by another colleague, and he's called what I did a jerk move, and I guess he shared it with a couple of other people, and now I'm not too sure anymore on whether I'm being a jerk or not. Is this a jerk move? I mean, as long as OP's being completely truthful about those $12,000, I don't know if I can fault them necessarily, especially if they're the ones having to take care of the 4 children. Buongiorno Italy said, "To be fair, he has owed you $12,000 for 4 years. His priorities should have been clearing his debt and then saving for an engagement ring, especially when he clearly had the money. Also, surely he can find an engagement ring for $6,000. Not the jerk, you only kept what you were owed." This next story is, am I the jerk for using TSA Precheck while my girlfriend went through the regular line? So I, 31-year-old male, and my girlfriend, 28-year-old female, recently went on a vacation to Paris from New York City. Before the trip, I mentioned to her that I would pay for the entire trip if she applied for global entry, which includes TSA Precheck. I thought this would be a great way for us both to avoid long lines at TSA. I even started the application for her, and all she had to do was finish it. However, she didn't complete the application, and I ended up paying for the whole trip anyway because I was planning to do so regardless. I just wanted to give her an incentive to apply for global entry. When the day of travel arrived, I went through the TSA Precheck line, and she had to go through the regular line. For the beginning part of our trip, she was mad at me for this. Am I the jerk for using TSA Precheck while my girlfriend went through the regular line, even though I offered her an incentive to apply for global entry? I don't think OP's the jerk. They tried to offer a bone for them to, finally just go and do it. If they didn't do it or they weren't motivated enough to get it done, didn't see the benefit, well, that's on them and it's not OP's fault. How can OP get flack in the situation of, I literally tried to incentivize you to get it done? Our next story is, am I the jerk for describing my mom's second marriage and her younger kids as her do-over family? I, 17-year-old female, lost my dad when I was 5. My parents were married, but I remember dad being more present in my early memories than mom, and when my dad died, I know my mom wasn't there for me. She left me to raise myself, or she roped in some extended family to take care of me, usually grandparents. But she wouldn't always do that, and I was sort of forced to become independent and more mature in some ways to raise myself. Like, I had to make sure I ate, did homework, got to school on time, all without my mom helping me. The most she would do is make some food, but she wouldn't even tell me she had. I usually had to search the fridge to find it. My grandparents were the ones who celebrated my birthdays with me, and they were the ones who typically went to my school for parent conferences. My mom doesn't know me. She couldn't tell you what classes I take in high school, what my favorite food or color is, who my friends and best friends are. Nothing. 5 years ago, she met her husband Sam, and pretty quickly, like before they were living together, my mom got pregnant. So Sam moved in and my mom married him. Her daughter was born 4 years ago and her son followed along 2 years ago. And right away, I see the difference in how my mom is with them. She knows them and loves them. She dedicates time to them. She advocates for them. All the things I do not remember her ever doing for me. She eats with them and plays with them, and she takes her daughter to preschool every day and takes her for a treat after. It sucks to see. It sucks to see. I didn't get a good mom, but I see she had it in her to be a good mom and chose not to be. Sam isn't as good as my dad was though, but he's still better than my mom ever was to me. Last week, my mom asked me to babysit for her and Sam and I said no. My mom was shocked and asked me why I wouldn't babysit. I told her I had work and I had plans with friends. She told me she would have expected me to want time with the kids. I told her I don't want time with her do-over family. She asked me what that meant, and I said Sam and the kids are her do-over family. She's a better mom to her younger kids, and she and Sam have created their own perfect little family with them and their kids. But she was never that for me. I told her I have zero interest in helping her out with the do-over family, and I pointed out that it was the most she had said to me in years because she normally doesn't talk to me or include me in anything, and the only reason she was speaking to me is she wanted something. She was all, "How dare you say that about Sam and the kids?" And she told me I had an awful attitude and she hopes the kids never pick up on how I feel about them and their dad. She told me they deserve better than being described that way, and she told me I had some nerve to be jealous that her kids have a happy family life. I laughed and told her she only cared about them, and that was clear. She called me a nasty little bench. Am I the jerk? OP's not the jerk. Their mom wasn't there for them and, in a lot of ways, basically abandoned them. I think the truth just hurts sometimes. Participant said, no, not the jerk. You are right and we're blunt about it. Your mom didn't want to hear your truth. It sounds like you have your head screwed on right, but I would start making plans for when you can get out of there. College is amazing. You can find your own chosen family. OP responded saying, I plan to go into a trade because college isn't in the cards for me, but I already have plans for what will happen when I turn 18 in a few months. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my daughter that she can go back to college and we will loan the money, not give it to her? We paid for all the kids' college education and have made it externally clear that if they mess up, we will not give more money on that. My daughter is our middle child and is 22. She should have graduated, but she flunked out of college and then lied to us about it. She flunked out of her first year, and we only learned the week before she was supposed to go back. We made her get a job at a local store, and she's been paying rent at home. It's $300 a month for everything. We mostly started to do this because she lied again and told us she had a job, then went broke. Anyways, we don't trust her to be responsible on her own. She came to us saying she wanted to go back to college. We made it clear that we will not be paying, that she can get loans with interest or get loans from us that have zero interest. It would be in writing and she will need to pay us back. I also brought up the college will cost more now that she doesn't have scholarships. This started an argument. She's ticked since her siblings are going or went to college without any debt. I made it clear that they didn't mess up and she had the same deal that she threw away. Are we being jerks about this? I think OP's honestly being more than generous. A zero-interest loan to get into college. Let's be real. You're never going to get that option anywhere else. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my mom her wedding anniversary was not the #1 priority for me? My children were? My mom celebrated being 20 years married to her husband John last weekend. They were throwing a party for all their friends and family to celebrate. My family and I were supposed to go, but I had to tell them we wouldn't make it a few days beforehand because 2 of my children were sick. We live in another state, so had to travel to be there, and there was no way that was happening when I had 2 sick kids. My mom told me not to say I wouldn't be there and to wait and see how things worked that Saturday because maybe everyone would be all better and we could still drive out and make it. But the kids were still sick. Our youngest was actually a lot worse and was hospitalized later that night, while the party was actually ongoing. Thankfully, we got him home Sunday, but it was a lot. My mom called me yesterday and wanted to know why I hadn't found a way to make it work. She told me that she would have thought celebrating my parents' 20-year wedding anniversary would have been the #1 priority for me. I told her it wasn't my #1 priority, my children were. She told me of course, but she would still imagine I would make it a priority to celebrate my parents' marriage. I told her not in those circumstances. She said celebrating your parents is supposed to be a good thing. I pointed out to her that it was not my parents' anniversary because she has never told me her and my dad's wedding anniversary. He died when I was only 6. And that while her husband is a great guy and I get along fine with him, she can't keep acting like her marriage to my dad and my dad didn't exist. For context, I said this to my mom because after my dad died when I was 6, she stopped talking about him. She never wanted me to ask about him, and when she got remarried, she wanted me to take her husband's last name and agree to being adopted. She pushed the narrative that he was now my dad and that it was disrespectful to her husband and the life they were building to mention my dad again. She would talk about her husband being her only love, her true love, how he gave her all her kids. She erased my dad, and she argued with her own family from time to time when they would mention dad. Her family said she and my dad adored each other while he was alive, and they couldn't understand it. My mom's husband honestly didn't care about me talking about my dad, or mom for that matter, but mom refused. She was upset when I chose to use a female version of my dad's name for my daughter. She was upset that my wife and I had a photo of dad at our wedding. She really just wants everyone to forget about him and focus on her current marriage. Anyway, during this disagreement with mom over her anniversary, and after I said that to her, she told me that she's been married for 20 years and I'm almost 30. So her husband deserves to be acknowledged as my dad, and their marriage is deserving of being a priority for me. She told me she was ashamed of my childish behavior. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk here. I mean, especially after all of the backstory of how OP's mom has treated OP, but especially the main focus of this post, OP's not the jerk for looking out for their children when their children are sick. The children absolutely are understandably the priority. Our next story is, am I the jerk for roaming around naked in my house? My roommate, 20-year-old male, and me, 20-year-old male, have been sharing a home since the last 2 months. 3 days ago, he told me that he's leaving to see his family and would be back in a week. I had the whole house to myself for a week. Today, I walked out of the shower to the kitchen naked to check on the cake I was baking. My roommate suddenly barged in while I was in the kitchen with everything out. Things have gotten very awkward between us since then. He's saying I shouldn't roam around the house naked. I'm saying that he should have told me that he's coming earlier. Who's at fault here? I mean, when you're told, hey, you're gonna have the house alone for a week, and they come back 4 days early, no surprise, no message. Realistically, I don't think OP's the jerk, and I don't know if they necessarily had to send a warning message, but I don't think OP's the jerk, because realistically, they were still expecting to be home alone for the next 96 hours. The only thing that would have made it awkward is if they had security cameras in the house. Our next story is, am I the jerk for leaving after my husband let his buddy's wife help with our home repairs? My husband and I bought a home 4 months ago, and his friend/coworker lives next door with his wife and their 6 kids. We both have a 5-month-old. When we bought the home, it was in need of repair. All the cabinets needed to be ripped out as they were repulsive, all the walls needed repairs, holes in the walls, and to be repainted. But my husband dragged his feet because we just had a baby and he didn't want to add more to our plate. He decided to do repairs this week. Prior to me giving birth, I was a general contractor and had been working in construction since I was 15. I've helped build multiple homes, done flooring, painting, and have even done concrete work, foundations, so I'm very experienced in that department. My husband is not. He's worked in restaurants since he was a teen, so he has no idea what he's doing. What I had planned to do was repair the walls and paint them when he worked on the rugs. After that was completed, I plan to build all of our own shelving, as our home has a lack of storage space of any kind, including closets. Along the way of assessing, we noticed some outside work that absolutely needed to be done to prevent mold and moisture as well, which he would take care of. And as an added measure, I plan to build our bed. We're currently sleeping on a mattress on the floor because prior to us moving, our stuff was destroyed in a flood, so I was going to build us a frame like I've done multiple other times. Now on to the issue, my husband has decided that I can't help him because of the baby. The place is small, so he doesn't want the baby inside. He says that me building anything will take too much time, and has decided to go out and buy shelving and bed frames at a much higher cost than I could build one for. He bought all white paint instead of paint we agreed on because this way is just faster. And his buddy's wife next door came over yesterday with her own 5-month-old to see how things were going and asked him if she could help, and he said yes, despite knowing that I'm going mental because he won't let me do anything, even though this is literally my profession. She just stuck her kid in my kid's jumper and started helping. As soon as he told her she could help, I just took my baby and left. Told him I'd be at my mother's. He's now upset with me because I don't understand that he's just trying to get this done. So I commented on the fact that he should have let me help him, but instead, he allowed his buddy's wife to do something I should have been doing in the first place. He says I'm overreacting because I know why he didn't want me helping. But if they don't care that their kid is around it, then that's a them problem. I don't even want to go back now. I'm so disgusted that he's even letting her help while knowing that I'm already ticked that he won't let me do anything. Am I the jerk? I really don't think OP's the jerk here, especially considering they have a wealth of experience in how to do this properly. Honestly, if anything, I feel like either he is just feeling like he needs to be masculine and have a role here, or he doesn't want to be stuck having to take care of the child himself. Like, what else could it be? Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my friend that he should stop giving his daughter juice? I, female 28, have been friends with Gordon, male 30, since college, and I'm fairly close with him and his family. Gordon has a 6-year-old daughter who has just had her first cavity, and the dentist suggested to my friend that he should make sure she isn't getting too much junk food. Gordon was very frustrated and venting to me about how it's normal for kids to get cavities and that his daughter is very healthy. This quite simply isn't true. I know that they're pretty good for food most of the time, but since the age of 2, she's been drinking juice. It has gotten to the point where she only drinks juice, and the only way they can get her to drink water is if they cut it with water. She'll throw a tantrum if there isn't enough juice mixed with her water, and her parents always end up giving her more juice. I told Gordon that he should probably cut way back on the amount of juice he gives her, and it shouldn't be the only thing that she drinks. Gordon got very frustrated with me. He told me that as a single person without any kids, that I don't understand what it's like to have a kid, and that juice isn't as bad as people say. I told him that even if I don't have kids, I know there is a lot of sugar in the juice he buys, and that it isn't healthy. Gordon ended up telling me that if I can't be a supportive friend, that I shouldn't be near him or his family. This was a few days ago, and he has not answered any texts since. I mean, to some degree, I feel like there is a point where it's like, listen, he doesn't really want your input. Like, I get you're trying to be helpful, but clearly it's agitating him at some level. That said, I don't think OP's wrong. Depending on the brand they buy, juice can be pound for pound worse than even like regular soda. It's complicated because at some level it's like technically not OP's business and it's getting nosy if they're like saying stop. But like, OP's being very truthful. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to eat a meal my girlfriend made and hurting her feelings? So my girlfriend had her whole family over at our place the other day, and she cooked her best recipe, an egg casserole. The issue here is that I really hate eggs. I don't like the smell, the texture, the sight, and I especially hate the taste of eggs, and I've hated eggs for my whole life. My girlfriend knows this, and she doesn't force me to eat eggs, but she's begged me to try her casserole. At dinner, I tried it, and my girlfriend was looking at me, and she knew I didn't like it. I had to pour a lot of ketchup on the casserole and pinch my nose just so I could eat it. Her cousins asked me what was wrong, and my girlfriend explained my aversion to eggs, and they understood. My girlfriend, on the other hand, sounded like she was offended, and she told me that she cooked her eggs so they didn't taste like eggs. We have a lot of leftovers, and last night I made myself some Kraft macaroni. My girlfriend asked me why I wasn't having any of the casserole, and I was surprised that she even asked. I told her I didn't like it, and she looked at me silently for like a minute and went to our room, where she went to bed. I can tell that she is mad at me. I think most people can clearly agree OP's not the jerk here. They said, listen, I just have never liked eggs. It's a food I've just never enjoyed. Whether that's for reasons the girlfriend will ever see as valid or not, that's the truth to OP, and they even tried it and proved they really didn't like it. Prime Minister wrote, I know you don't like eggs, so I made an egg dish, but don't worry, I made them so they don't taste like eggs. Here, let me serve the egg dish to you in front of company, so you will have to eat it. So you don't make a scene and embarrass me. Oh, gasp! You drowned my precious eggs in ketchup and my family is questioning you, me, and the stability of our relationship. Sob. And you quietly refused to eat the leftover egg dish later and made yourself something else to eat. How dare you? I will go to my room and be mad. Your girlfriend, probably. Not the jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not giving my roommate a tampon and telling her she can no longer use anything I own? This is such a stupid post, and I'm still so embarrassed and flabbergasted that this even happened to begin with. For context, I, 25-year-old female, live with roommates. All are female. We've all gotten close in the 2 years we've lived together, except for one roommate. We'll call her Emma, 23. It's not that I dislike Emma, but we've never meshed as well as my other roommates have. The other day, Emma called us all out to the living room where she was folding her laundry. She held up a pair of underwear and asked if it belonged to any of us, and I recognized them as mine, so I said yes. I apologized for the mix-up, and she immediately started yelling at me about how disgusting I am and how she wanted to light herself on fire after touching them. Since I live with girls, this happens all the time, and none of us ever get weirded out by it. I can't even begin to count how many times someone's bras, socks, underwear, etc. have gotten mixed with my laundry by mistake. It's a bit embarrassing to admit, but I realized they were actually an old pair of period underwear that had, I cannot stress this enough, minor stains on them from years ago when I first got my period. Emma, again, decided to loudly announce how gross she thought I was, and how I should be ashamed for not throwing them out and try to get my other roommates to look and join in on her outburst. Thankfully, I lived with some awesome girls, so nobody even batted an eye despite me being absolutely horrified that someone I live with would do something like that. Everyone was quick to reassure me that it's no big deal and it happens to all of us. They tried to tell Emma to chill out, but she wasn't having it. She just went to her room and slammed the door. For the next week, Emma didn't speak to me. She would loudly talk to all of our other roommates with no problem, but the minute I tried speaking to her, she would just walk away. A couple days ago, I was laying in bed and Emma was the only other person home. She knocked on my door, and when I opened it, she sheepishly asked me for a tampon, saying she woke up from a nap and bled through her shorts. How ironic. I laughed and told her no, I don't have any left. And I knew our other roommates had some somewhere, so it's not like she had nothing. Yesterday, she asked all of us if she could borrow a shirt because her clothes were in the washer. We all said no, and I even said I wouldn't want her to light herself on fire after touching any of my nasty stuff. She rolled her eyes and gave me a half-hearted apology, and I told her I don't want her touching or borrowing my stuff if that's the way she acts about a natural bodily function that she also goes through. She called me childish and said she didn't see the big deal. Now there's this weird passive-aggressive vibe every time we're in the same room, and I'm wondering if I should just apologize or not. I've talked to some friends and they've said I've got nothing to apologize for, but I'm wondering if I overreacted. So, am I the jerk? OP's not the jerk, and I mean, bottom line, they didn't have any tampons to give, so what can they even do? And to be fair, I think a lot of other people would be a lot more petty than even OP did. Try to find in some kind of way to slip a comment about lighting something on fire. Our next story is, am I the jerk for making my mom leave my house after calling my daughter unladylike? I, 40-year-old female, have a daughter, 13-year-old female, who isn't exactly a tomboy, but does boy activities. I'm saying boy activities for the sake of this post. And my mom, 63-year-old female, is pretty old-fashioned. My daughter isn't doing a sport right now, but she did a winter sport and a fall sport. Whenever my mom saw her coming back from basketball all sweaty and stuff, she would scrunch her face. She would tell me her being sweaty and nasty isn't a good image, but she wasn't saying that to my daughter, according to her and my daughter, so I didn't make too much of it. On Saturday, my husband, daughter, son, and I went to a semi-formal Sweet 16. My daughter wore a really nice green dress, but my mom's issue? My daughter doesn't wear makeup, so she wasn't wearing any. Upon noticing, she said, "Missy, you are very unladylike." And before she could sit down, I told her to get on her phone and call someone because she sure as heck wasn't staying here after that. My brother came and picked her up. Now I wonder whether I overreacted because my daughter didn't even seem to care and thinking I should have let this slide. Am I the jerk, Redditors? Even though the daughter was willing to just ignore it and move on with it, I think it's fair that OP stuck up for them in this situation, especially when your kid is only 13 years old. I mean, I know all kids nowadays have cell phones and whatnot, but is it an expectation for a 13-year-old to have to wear makeup now? It's unladylike if a 13-year-old girl doesn't do a full face to a semi-formal Sweet 16. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.